There were an incredible amount of ideas that emerged from our conversation today. Ideas, and the essence of it was, how do you increase the thread of connection between East and West? It was amazing. What I saw happening today was amazing as the panelists started to unravel the complexity of that relationship between East and West. At first it seems like two words, East, West. And you start to think, well, what does East mean? And you see these beautiful paintings in our room depicting West version of East. How does East define East? How does East define West? How does West define West? To me, those were the essential questions that were being asked today. And it came out at a larger level in terms of political questions. It came out in terms of social attitudes and the transformation of social attitudes. It came out in terms of how to empower youth to build those kinds of threads of connection as well. Dialogue to me is very much like negotiation. Negotiation I define very simply as a purposive interaction. Anytime you and I interact for some purpose, we're negotiating. And I think dialogue is very much like that. It's in a sense the means for negotiating. It's the means for getting what we and others want, trying to reach some sort of mutual gains in the ideal. People often equate dialogue with talking. And I think the more important part of dialogue is the listening. That came out in the panel today. In order to have effective dialogue, I cannot stand on a stage and talk at you. I need to listen to you. I need to talk with you, to understand your perspective, to see the merit in your perspective, to really appreciate where you're coming from, and for you to understand where I'm coming from as well. I mean, I think that's dialogue. It's relational. Dialogue is relational. It's something that happens in the context of a relationship. The moment that I, as a leader of a country or the leader of a grassroots movement, start espousing my views, advocating, asserting my views without listening, that's not dialogue, that's lecture. I was recently in Tianjin, China, at a World Economic Forum conference, talking with a group of very successful negotiators, Chinese negotiators. And I asked them, how are you so successful negotiating with those Americans? And they said, oh, we spent a week preparing before we went to the negotiation. I said, you spent a week preparing? How did you prepare? You know, how did you start understanding U.S. culture? What about the U.S. culture did you start preparing on? And they said, no. We spent a week trying to understand our own culture, trying to understand ourselves. And I think to have effective dialogue, it cannot just be talking from the mouth. It has to be really first the internal understanding. What's the message I want to communicate? How can I effectively communicate that message? And then how can I listen to your message as well? And the intertwining of our two messages together, which create that thing called dialogue, the crossing of the communication. In the early 1980s, my parents took a trip to Eastern Europe. They wanted to see what communism looked like firsthand. They became friendly with their tour guide. He visited my family, met myself and my sister, and said, I have a son just about your age. Let's figure out how to get Andy to come to the United States to live here for the year. This was unheard of. It was sort of like the East-West divide of the times. The communists said, we can't have one of our premier violinists come to the West, we'll lose him. And the capitalists said, whoa, who's this communist? We don't want them within our midst. He came for the year, and we built this incredible friendship. I went and visited him in Eastern Europe before the fall of communism. It changed my life. I would not be here talking with you today if it weren't for the fact of that human-to-human interaction with Andy, this single, this single Hungarian youth, and the connection we built, and all that connection then brought about, the curiosity about other societies, the recognition that our way of doing things isn't the only right way of doing things. There are other right ways of doing things. I think dialogue is different as people grow older. By the time one is in his or her 50s or 60s, there are very, very solidified understandings of the world, the way the world works, and my place in the world. I think in the teens, the 20s, and even into the 30s, there's still an openness to understanding and a certain kind of curiosity that's a bit rarer as one grows older. So I think there's a certain value to having youth-to-youth dialogue, youth-to-youth exchange programs. People-to-people dialogue is good no matter what to me. You know, if the intentions are pure, if people are interested in figuring out how to better understand and to cooperate, beautiful.